ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾವು ಈ ದಿನ ಬ್ರೈನಿನ ವಿಚಾರವಾಗಿ ಕೆಲವು ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಸಹಿತ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೆದುಳಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆಯಾಗಿದೆ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರೈನ್ನಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನರಗಳು ಯಾವುದು, ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆನ್ನು ಮೂಳೆಯಲ್ಲಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಬೆನ್ನು ಹುರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನರಗಳು ಯಾವುದು ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಇದು ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಹಾಯ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಮೆಡಿಕಲ್ಸು ಅಥವಾ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಮೆಡಿಕಲ್ಲು ಇಂಥ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಇದು ಸಹಾಯ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಒಂದು ವಿಡಿಯೋದಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರೇನಿಯಂ, ಬ್ರೈನ್, ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್, ನರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಇವುಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಬನ್ನಿ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಬ್ರೈನಿನ ಒಂದು ಭಾಗವನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಕಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮೇಲಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕ್ರೇನಿಯಂ, ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇದು ಬರೆದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಚಿತ್ರ. ಈ ಚಿತ್ರವನ್ನು ಬರೆಯೋದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸ್ಬೋದು, ಆದರೆ ಸುಲಭ. ನಾನು ಮುಂದಿನ ಒಂದು PPTಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರವನ್ನು ಬರೆಯೋದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ನೀವು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಏನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬೇಕಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ, ಬ್ರೈನ್, ಮೆದುಳು ಅನೇಕ ಭಾಗಗಳನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಸೆರೆಬ್ರಮ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಭಾಗ, ಸೆರೆಬೆಲ್ಲಮ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಭಾಗ, ಮೆಡುಲ್ಲಾ ಆಬ್ಲಾಂಗೇಟ, ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ 3, 4 ಅಥವಾ 5 ಭಾಗಗಳನ್ನು ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಈ ಸೆರೆಬ್ರಮ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಅತ್ಯಂತ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಭಾಗ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರಂಟಲ್ ಲೋಬ್, ಪೆರೇಟಲ್ ಲೋಬ್, ಆಕ್ಸಿಪಿಟಲ್ ಲೋಬ್, ಟೆಂಪರಲ್ ಲೋಬ್, ಹೀಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಭಾಗಗಳಿದೆ. ಅದರ ಕೆಳಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಂಪು ಬಣ್ಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸೆರೆಬೆಲ್ಲಮ್ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ಸೆರೆಬೆಲ್ಲಮ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅದರ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಮೆಡುಲ್ಲಾ ಆಬ್ಲಾಂಗೇಟ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ಮೆಡುಲ್ಲಾ ಆಬ್ಲಾಂಗೇಟ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ತಿದೆ. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರವನ್ನು ಬರೆಯೋದನ್ನು ನೀವು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ನಾನು ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. Now the brain is covered over by a box called cranium. Cranium is a bony box. It is made up of flat bones. The bones are very flat, and each bone is connected by means of sutures. And these bones are flat in nature. When we are very young, when about 1 year old or even little earlier, you will find a small gap here, and that gap will be covered as we grow. That's all we have to remember. And there are bones like frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, occipital bone, sphenoid bone, ethmoid bone. All these bones have different names, and these names are very, very important because they protect the entire brain. Sometimes when the accident happens, when the brain box breaks, the skull breaks, the cranium breaks, then the entire brain is open to injuries. So you should know about the cranium, or what's called the brain box. ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ, ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಭಾಗವನ್ನು ಕ್ರೇನಿಯಂ ಅಥವಾ ಮೆದುಳಿನ ಪೆಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಫ್ಲ್ಯಾಟ್, ತುಂಬ ತೆಳುವಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಬೋನುಗಳಿಂದಾಗಿದೆ. ಆ ಬೋನುಗಳು ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೂಚರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಇದು ಈ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್, ಬೋನಿ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದು ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೆದುಳು ಸುರಕ್ಷಿತವಾಗಿದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ಕ್ರೇನಿಯಂ ಕೆಳಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ 3 layers. There are 3 layers of meninges. Meninges are nothing but protective fluids. They protect the brain and the spinal cord. These 3 important meninges are called, the first one is called dura mater, then pia mater, arachnoid mater. So these are 3 important meninges. Now if you look at it, the dura mater is the outermost, toughest layer of the brain, and it is dense and fibrous membrane, provides the most significant protective barrier. And then comes the second one called the pia mater, then comes the arachnoid mater. It is almost like the brain's own suit of armor. That means dura means hard, mater means mother. Hard mother means the cover that gives a big protection to the brain, even though the bony box is sometimes injured, the cranium is injured, then the dura mater protects the brain. Let me tell you briefly the pia mater and the arachnoid mater. The pia mater is also called soft mother or pia mater means mother, maternal like mother. Pia mater is the innermost part of the brain, covering of the brain, meninges of the brain. It is very soft in nature, and then it supplies blood to the nervous and also nervous tissue of the brain, and the spinal cord helps in production of the circulation of the cerebrospinal fluid. You must remember that the brain, the covering of these three meninges, is filled with fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. That is very important because it contains nutrition and it also supplies the blood vessels to the brain. Then in between the pia mater and the dura mater, that is in between the two, we got arachnoid mater. That's the middle layer. It works to protect and also nourish the brain. Think of the dura mater as a tough outer shell, arachnoid mater as the protective web inside, and the pia mater soft and snug fitting like glove. That means the brain is entirely covered by, first, the cranium or the brain box made up of flat bones, then three meninges called dura mater, pia mater, and the arachnoid mater. Let's try to remember briefly the cerebrum. Brain's largest part is divided into two hemispheres, and each hemisphere is further divided into lobes. That means the cerebrum has been divided into many lobes called the frontal lobe, handles executive functions like decision making, problem solving, and planning. Parietal lobe processes sensory information such as touch, temperature, and pain. Occipital lobe manages visual processing. Temporal lobe involved in memory and auditory processing. Please look at the diagram and then try to identify these very, very important parts of the cerebrum. Now the cerebellum is located at the back of the brain. It controls the motor skills, balance, and coordination. It's essential for activities requiring precise timing and execution. Now, when you want to look at the brain properly, I think in these explanations, it is impossible to know how the brain looks like. If you have a laboratory or if you go to a medical museum, please look at the brain. And the brain has a lot of grooves. Cerebrum has a lot of groove-like structure. It's made up of gray matter. And then at the bottom of the cerebrum, which is the main part, we got the cerebellum. So I request you to go to any medical museum and try to find out how the brain looks like. Now comes the brain stem. This connects the brain with spinal cord and manages vital functions. It's divided into three parts, and these three parts are called midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Midbrain is involved in vision, hearing, and motor control. Pons bridge between various parts of the nervous system, including cerebellum and cerebrum. So these are all the brain is each part of the brain is not separated. They are interconnected, and it's almost like a huge system of tubes where cerebrospinal fluid flows inside, and medulla oblongata regulates heart rate, breathing, and blood pressure. That means most of the involuntary functions are controlled by the brain stem. Now the fourth part of the brain, we can call it limbic system, often referred to as the emotional brain. It's involved in emotional responses, motivation, memory formation, and other important activities. Components include, it is inside the brain actually. It is maybe you can say near the cerebrum, cerebellum. Inside the cerebrum you find a place called amygdala, hippocampus, and thalamus. These three parts are there. Amygdala processes emotions like fear and pleasure and empathy. Hippocampus, crucial for memory formation. Thalamus acts as a relay station for sensory information. These parts are studied by the doctors, especially the neuro doctors. They know each part. If an accident or if there is a blade inside the blood, inside the brain, they have to repair. So to repair all these things, they must know these parts. So, but in this PPT, what you should know is brain, not only cerebellum and stem are important. Inside the brain there are parts. These parts are involved in many functions like fear, empathy, love, affection. All these things are got different parts, and it's called limbic system. Another small part of the brain called hypothalamus. It regulates bodily functions like temperature, hunger, and thirst, and controls pituitary gland, which releases hormones. You know, pituitary gland is somewhere, and then these are all the various parts of the brain. Not only cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata are important, but inside the brain there are parts, and these parts regulate various functions. What you should try to understand is brain is a highly complex organ in the body. We cannot differentiate, ordinary people cannot differentiate the parts inside, but for theory purpose, for knowing purpose, please try to know that brain not only has cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata, which we talk in the high school classes, but it also contains many parts inside, like different parts like amygdala, hippocampus, and all these things. They also do various functions. Our nervous system not only has the brain with three parts which I'll explain to you, it has nervous system. The nervous system there are two different nervous systems you have to remember. One is called the cranial nerves. Cranial nerves come from the cranium. Cranium means the brain. From the brain, there are 12 pairs of nerves called cranial nerves. These nerves are sensory nerves. They can receive information, but they cannot give any motor activity. And there are 12 pairs. Just you must know, the diagram is only suggestive. It only gives you an idea that the central nervous system or the brain has different parts like cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, stem, and also from the stem starts the spinal cord. From this, and the spinal cord includes a large number of nerves, and also from the brain, different parts of the brain, from the cerebrum, from the cerebellum, medulla oblongata, we have nerves. There are 12 pairs called cranial nerves, and from the spinal cord, which is in the backbone is Backbone has a large number of vertebrae. Inside the vertebrae, we have spinal nerves, and there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. It looks like I have given a long list of nerves. It is just for your sake. There are only, now you can see the cranial nerves, there are 12 pairs I have written. Each one has a different function. Smell, vision, eye movement, pupil construction, sensation of the face, chewing of the muscles, eye movement, facial expressions, taste, hearing, balance, taste, swallowing, controls of many functions like heart, lungs, and digestive tract, tongue movements. All these are connected from the cranial nerves. These nerves perform a variety of functions from sensory like smell and vision to motor like moving muscles. Each has unique role in maintaining body's functions and communication with the brain. That means these are the communication channels. Whatever the signals we get from outside will be transferred from these nerves into the different parts of the brain for various functions. A brief explanation about the spinal cord and the spinal nerves. Spinal cord is a long cylindrical structure that runs down in the center of the backbone from the brainstem to the lower back. Its main part is the highway. Its main function is it's almost like works like a highway for information traveling between the brain and the rest of the body. It has several key functions. The most important function of the spinal cord is relay information, do reflexes, coordination, integrating sensory and motor information, helps coordinate many movements. Sensory means the functions which are very important, like feeling of the touch, cold, and then smell, seeing things, looking at the colors, talking. All these things are sensory functions. Motor functions include the movement. We move. When you look at something, we call it black, we call it red, we call it thin, and temperature like cold and all. All these are all different functions. You please remember that these are all taken care by spinal cord. I just showed briefly a very imaginative picture given by someone about the nervous system. The spinal nerves, there are 31 pairs of branching out from the spinal cord. Each pair emerges from the segment of the spinal cord and serves specific region. You know, these names are all very difficult to understand, but what you should remember is there are 31 pairs. It forms a network of nerves in the body from the spinal cord, from the left side and the right side of the backbone. Nerves will go right up to the toe. They start coming from the spinal cord and they move to the thigh and to the legs, calf muscles, and then into the fingers. Like that in the arms also. So these spinal nerves play a very important role in transforming information between different parts of the body through the spinal cord and then into the brain and back through the spinal cord to different organs. Just remember, spinal nerves are there in our body. They help in relaying the information. This particular presentation may not be much help to high school students, as I said earlier, but for general information to understand how the body receives information and how the body sends signals to various parts through a huge network of nervous system. And just remember, the entire nervous system includes the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. They form a huge network. and all these nervous system is protected by meninges and the fluids, and each nerve has got a covering. So I will be quite happy if you can read the books on by David Eagleman about the brain, which is very easy to understand. My credits are due to Creative Commons for a few pictures, and Copilot for giving me more information on brain, and Dr. David Eagleman's book. To master the contents of the PPTs what I presented here on brain, please listen and read at least 5 times. If you don't want to master the content of the presentation, you may just look at once, listen once, and think brain is the most wonderful structure in our human body, which can do many functions. Thank you for listening and viewing this video.